What's going on, guys? Fat Adapted Athlete coming at you. In today's video, I want to talk to you about keto percentages or keto macros. Okay guys, so I want to talk to you about a very controversial subject. There's a big divide in the ketogenic community on how to properly set up a ketogenic diet. There are those that say calories don't matter, and there are others that say that it does. So invariably people set up a ketogenic diet one of two ways. Either they set it up with a certain percentage range, saying, hey, 80% of your calories should come from fat. The remaining 20% would be divided among protein and carbohydrates. Others say that you should set up by specific gram amount, 30 net carbs or less, and let's say 120 grams of protein, and then the rest from fat. So we have two different varying camps. So the ketogenic diet goes way back to treating epilepsy. It was known to actually cure children from epilepsy. Now, my wife personally has epilepsy. She has grand mal seizures, but she has an implant, so she is able to live a very normal life. But years ago, they were looking into ketogenic diet for her, but she'd already outgrown the point where you could pretty much cure with the diet. However, there are some therapeutic applications. And so that's where we began with her, was setting her up on a ketogenic diet. And what we know from the science of human metabolism, and what I also know from personal experience, my wife gained weight. She was putting weight on week after week, month after month on a ketogenic diet because we weren't keeping calories or intake into account. It was just hit a certain percentage of fat. So a while back, Lyle McDonald wrote a book called The Ketogenic Diet. And in there he talks about how for a meal to be ketogenic, it had to meet a certain ratio of ketogenic agents versus anti-ketogenic agents. And based on that, there were some ratios that came about. There's an article which I'm referring to and will be in the description box below, which talks a lot about what I'm talking about today, where Lyle even said he did away with the percentages. And here's why. Most of us are trying to apply a ketogenic diet for optimal body recomposition. And you're not gonna approach it the same way as you would if you're trying to do it for therapeutical purposes. So here's the problem. To meet a certain percentage, people would invariably either do one of two things. They would either undereat protein significantly, which isn't optimal for supporting lean body mass, especially if you're trying to gain lean body mass. So they would invariably eat protein very, very low in order to make the fat equal 80%. The other thing people would do is they would eat the proper amount of protein, but in order to make the protein be a lower percentage so fat could be 80%, they would invariably raise calories to a point that was well above maintenance. So anybody that tells you that calories don't matter and energy intake and energy balance doesn't matter, run. If they say they can't calculate an approximate amount of energy intake for you, at least to start with, don't hire that person as a coach. There is enough data so that we can roughly estimate what a person's energy intake should be. Is it going to be an exact science? No, unless you get into a metabolic chamber and we test you, no. But we can fairly assess from your height, weight, body fat percent, and how much lean body mass you have, how many calories it takes to support that. One of the big issues people have with using the word calories is a lot of people have said, oh, a calorie is a calorie. Well, anybody in the evidence-based fitness community will be the first to tell you that a calorie isn't a calorie. You know, just the micronutrients you would get from eating greens versus eating an ice cream sandwich are going to be vastly different. The other big thing is thermic effect of food, and that's how much energy it takes your body to actually heat up and digest that food. So the thermic effect of food of a chicken breast is going to vastly different from a Pop-Tart. Okay, so no, a calorie isn't a calorie. And the way you structure your diet is gonna have a huge impact on your body composition results. So here's why we should stick to calculating by grams. Number one, energy intake matters. Science has shown it. Hundreds of clients that I've helped coach online, we see this. They go from the high-fat community. I got an email just today. I got an email from a guy saying that keto wasn't working for him, and basically he realized he had tried the high-fat diet way where there was unlimited amount of calories. The one thing people don't take into account is when we say high-fat, some of that's going to come from your plate and some of it's going to come from your body fat. Up to 50% of your fat can come from body fat stores in the beginning. If you look at this chart right here, they show that a large portion can come from body fat stores. If you take all your energy from food, there is no need to dip into energy stores if you're having an energy maintenance or surplus from your plate. So here's how I look at calculating macros. Carbs and protein should be somewhat fixed, and you fill the rest with fat based on your goals: cutting, maintaining, or bulking. Carbs, obviously 30 grams or less of net carbs. Okay, you can subtract fiber, so if you're eating 50 grams of carbohydrates and 20 are fiber, we've got 30 net carbs. And most people need to stay in the range of 30 to 50 carbs. There are some people who can eat upwards of 97 or more carbs and still be in ketosis. But for the average everyday person, 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates to induce ketosis. And guys, that's the whole thing about a ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet is not driven by how much fat you eat, especially if you have body fat stores. What creates a state of ketosis? Carb restriction. That's it. You can literally not eat anything for a week and you'll be in ketosis without consuming 1 single gram of fat. It's not driven by how much fat you eat, it's driven by how much carb restriction. So restrict carbs to 30 to 50 grams or less to induce ketosis. The second thing we do is we go ahead and we calculate our protein at 0.67 to 0.82 grams per pound of lean body mass. Anything over that is a rate of diminishing return. You can actually only make 57 grams of glucose per 100 grams of protein. So as a rule of thumb, if you eat over 0.82 grams per pound of lean body mass, you can calculate about half of the protein towards your carb totals. Now, I have seen people eat ridiculous amounts of protein and it not affect their ketone levels. I have an example right here. My friend, Keto Diesel, Michael Trincitella, who after consuming over 300 grams of protein in a day, still had great ketone ratings. Another thing to mention is that ketones do not equate to your rate of fat loss. There was a study among overweight women, and the amount of ketones did not in any way correlate to their rate of fat loss. So we don't chase ketones. We don't chase ketone levels. Ketosis is actually more of a side benefit of these low carb macros that we follow to induce ketosis. But ketosis is more of that side effect. And because of ketosis, the way the diet is set up, there are a lot of hunger blunting effects, which is why it's so effective for most people. But make no mistake, you can lose weight with a low-fat diet, a low-carb diet, a regular bro diet, if it fits your macros diet. It's all about, are you creating a deficit, and what diet is best for you to create that deficit? Keto has been the best for me. I personally have lost 85 pounds on a ketogenic diet following this approach. I keep my carbs under 50, really under 30 every day. I prioritize protein and I make sure I meet my protein. It's a goal of mine to meet that protein. And then I fill the rest with fat based on what my goals are. I know what my maintenance calories are. I've been to the gym, had them do the metabolic testing on me to find my resting metabolic rate. And based on that, I know what it takes to maintain or lose every day. My wife, as I mentioned, she was following this for therapeutic purposes. She was gaining weight. We realized, you know what? calories do matter. And this is before I became fitness nutrition certified, before I began studying with Menno Henselmans in Bayesian bodybuilding. Before all that, we knew just from experience that energy intake does matter. We changed for macros. We prioritized protein, and we set her up with this protein structure. We kept the carbs low, and we restricted fat. And lo and behold, look at the transformation she's made. She was very obese like myself, and she got totally shredded for our daughter's wedding. And we did that by understanding that energy balance does matter. So just to recap, P, prioritize protein. C, curb carbs. And F, fill with fat. Okay? That's basically how you set up a ketogenic diet for success. It does matter what your energy intake is. It does matter what your energy balance is. You're actually storing and releasing fat throughout the day. So you go through periods of fat loss and fat gain throughout the day. The question is, do you end up at the end of that day or that week or that month in a deficit? If not, you will not lose weight. You can take an example of several keto gurus who are very overweight, who put copious amounts of butter, as they've shown on their social media platforms. They eat large amounts of fat. They don't restrict themselves. They haven't been able to make the body recomposition changes. There are a lot of people that have tagged on to the ketogenic bandwagon and have jumped on this as something that they found along the way. For me personally, I basically changed my body composition with keto. Now, we'll go into a lot more detail about this in the Fat Adapted Academy, which I have put together for people, because there's so much misinformation out there. And I know so many people who've lost so much time and gotten so discouraged on why keto didn't work for them because they're not following it correctly. So we're going to go into a lot more detail of the science and research behind a lot of these things I just talked about in the Fat Adapted Academy that releases on February 15th. But I wanted to put out a video in the meantime that kind of addressed this. So on Facebook, on the discussion boards, when you're talking with someone and you're trying to explain this to a family member or friend, you could just link this video and hopefully that explains it. So anyways, guys, without making this video too long, I want to say thank you for listening. I'll have some references in the description box below. Don't forget to check out fatadaptedacademy.com that releases on February 15th. Fat Adapted Athlete coming at you. And until next time, keep it keto, my friends.